Yeah, I read that you were a libertarian at one time, as you just mentioned, and now you're an alt-right. Why did you leave? Why did you stop being a libertarian and became an alt-right?
I'm not entirely sure that I have stopped being a libertarian. I read Hans Hermann Hoppe's Democracy, the God That Failed. It's an excellent book. I can't recommend that highly enough. And he talks about libertarianism as basically almost as if the ultimate logical conclusion of it is monarchy, because property owners are in complete control of their property and are going to be able to tell the people on their property what to do. And as we know from anything that goes on in modernity, we know that some people are a lot better at obtaining property than others, and without a centralized state to create all this uncertainty in titles and property taxes and whatnot, then you can imagine that very capable people are going to end up in control of more land than others, and most likely most of us would be tenants upon that land, and we would basically be their subject.
Basically, all mainstream attempts at spreading libertarianism has failed. Lately, I've been contemplating why that's the case. Why libertarians suck so much at convincing others to adopt individualist thinking. And the conclusion that I came to is that collectivism is simply superior to individualism. So why do I think collectivism is superior to individualism? Well, as an Ancap, I never thought I'd say it, but pragmatism.
So this video has been a long time coming. Throughout our ongoing exploration of philosophy and discovering various perspectives on the nature of political rule, Hans Hermann Hoppe, or Hop, has always stood out as a person of interest, not only in regard to his unique takes on certain libertarian concepts and ideas, but also the esteem to which he is held in both mainstream, second stream, and other libertarian circles. Yet he is also controversial, to whom various authoritarian tendencies among libertarians are blamed, usually from left libertarians and socialists. While exploring his views and interacting with his supporters, Esso and I found numerous points of contention between our own understanding of Austro-libertarianism, including economics, history, philosophy, and praxis, and those of Professor Hoppe's. However, aside from the occasional critique of one or two of his points by other philosophers ranging in quality from excellent to, he's a racist, there really has not been an in-depth exploration and critique of the ideas of Hans Hermann Hoppe. So, we took it upon ourselves to really dig down and explore his ideas, and figure out why we have such an issue with the ideas he puts forward, or even if it is us who are in the wrong. What we found are several points where Hoppe goes astray from Austrian methodology, libertarian first principles, and even methodological individualism. By the end of this multi-part series, you, dear viewer, should have a solid ground for not only understanding Hoppe, but the implications, complications, and contradictions in his particular brand of anarchism, far more in-depth than what you just might get from memes. There will be points we fail to pick up on, and even failings in understanding of what he is trying to convey. Nevertheless, we made our best attempt to criticize his ideas as they are written, and not some straw man formed from our limited understanding. Any such misunderstanding on our part is therefore on us, and should not be construed as a flaw in Hoppe's works. Nevertheless, we put this forward because Esoteric the Free and I do genuinely believe that these flaws are not mere disagreements, questions of preferences, or eccentricities that might otherwise taint an otherwise excellent philosopher's literary canon. Much like Lysander Spooner's defense of intellectual property, these flaws, common, pervasive, and interconnected throughout Hoppe's works, impair libertarianism's ability to appeal to literally everyone's self-interests, make truth claims about the relationship between people and the state, and taint our understanding of socio-economic reality, while inculcating narratives into the minds of uncritical libertarians that make statist narratives seem completely reasonable and accurate, manipulating libertarians into accepting and even demanding the very monopoly on arbitration Hoppe claims to be critical of. Suffice to say, this must be addressed. By all means, I encourage you, dear viewer, to read Hoppe's literary canon, listen to his lectures, come to your own conclusions. However, we believe an honest and critical examination of his work will bear out what we are to uncover. The way this will work is that we'll go through the aspects of Hoppe's ideas we believe to be important, explain the idea, to both contextualize our criticisms and also demonstrate our understanding of the subject. To clarify, our point of contention is not anarchism. We are anarchists too, and we have plenty of videos on this channel and my old channel on the topic. Literally weeks worth of commentaries, rebuttals, and video essays. We all recognize the state is a bad thing that needs to go away. That's hardly controversial. Our trouble with Hoppe isn't that he's an anarchist, it's how he approaches the subject, and intentionally or not, makes anarchism conceptually impossible. Before we begin, let's define some terms that will be appearing quite frequently. First off is natural aristocracy. In every group of people, including a hypothetical free society, there will be people who earn the respect of their peers through achievement and reputation for possessing qualities valuable in an arbitrator. Thus, if people can't resolve these disputes among themselves, they will go to these people to resolve their disputes for them. This mantle of arbitrator will be passed on to their kids, forming an arbitration dynasty, the patriarch of which is an arbitrator by nature of his family's reputation for fairness, prudence, and wisdom. This system of society being arbitrated by arbitration dynasties is a natural aristocracy. Now, in the absence of a state, social order would be achieved through the enforcement of social norms, property rights, and the resolution of disputes by the natural aristocracy. This is what Hoppe refers to as the natural order. And by a state, Esso, Hoppe, and I mean a geographical monopoly on arbitration. So, without further ado, let's begin.
Hermann Hoppe is a German-born, self-proclaimed Austro-libertarian philosopher and economist who over a career spanning nearly 50 years has produced a series of works primarily on the subjects of historical revisionism, that is, works which look at and attempt to correct the historical narrative surrounding certain occurrences and periods, and revise them to more accurately reflect reality based on evidence or observations not taken into consideration when forming said narratives. Works on the subject of philosophy, politics, or social organization and economic theory. Perhaps his most infamous work published being a book called Democracy, the God That Failed, which is a series of essays that encompass all four of the previously mentioned themes, which among many central themes include what are presented as attempts to expand upon the libertarian philosophy's core principles, specifically in regards to contract theory and defining ethical truths, attempts to expand upon the Austrian methodology while using it to construct criticisms of certain narratives about the nature of social organization, history, economic claims, and policy trends implemented by states. The specific arguments and conclusions Hoppe attempts to establish in this book have resulted in it simultaneously becoming a staple of and one of the most controversial works which is considered to be in the Austro-libertarian canon, and consensus to the validity of his arguments, or even whether or not his philosophy can be described as Austro-libertarian, seems to be split right down the middle. Though if you were to look at the bigger Austrian and Austro-libertarian circles or think tanks, you would get the impression that these groups are fanatical cults of personality which universally consider Triple H's contributions to be the current accepted views by every libertarian, proponent of Austrian theory, or anyone in between. This is largely, I would argue, the result of a few compounding factors. Firstly, Rothbard himself proudly endorsed Hoppe's contributions as valid expansions upon Austro-libertarian thought, and given the sway Rothbard held in the Mises Institute and the influence upon other Austrian theorists and libertarians alike in their intellectual development, this alone all but secured Hoppe's place as a significant figure within these communities. And secondly, because there have been virtually no influential figures within the major Austrian or libertarian community who've published in-depth criticism of Hoppe's work. The criticism of Hoppe's work within Austro-libertarian circles, which does exist, is limited mainly to blogs or podcasts, which themselves are pretty obscure, somewhat difficult to find, and barely even scrape the tip of the iceberg in terms of the problems with Hoppe's philosophy. The most in-depth critiques from the most prominent figures as of now, which I'm aware of, are Roderick Long's critique of argumentation ethics from his blog Austro-Athenian Empire, written in 2004, and an episode of Bob Murphy's podcast Contra Krugman, where he mentions a few of Hoppe's arguments for an episode dedicated to playing devil's advocate and challenging the libertarian philosophy. There's another reason as well, but I'll digress for the moment because it'll require going over Hoppe's arguments and his specific conception of libertarian philosophy first before I can make this point and create the strongest possible case for it. Anyway, Hoppe's bizarre ethical claims, or lack thereof, unusual slant on approaching what he describes as a praxeological analysis of human action, and what he envisions as being the logical conclusion of liberty, is all awfully convenient for critics of the Austrian methodology and libertarian philosophy alike, which is one of the main things which put him on our radar, because his arguments for libertarianism and his Wittgensteinian picture he paints a free society to look like much closer resembles the Ancap Picardia ball memes than it does the strongest possible cases which Hoppe's work frames itself as an expansion upon, critiquing political authority, demonstrating the nature of self-ownership, explaining the power of the praxeologue's interpretation of human action, etc. This video will be dedicated to going over specifically the positions Hoppe holds and arguments he espouses which draw the most controversy among Austrian and libertarian circles.